fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds of Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, here to bring you another Falcons Mock Draft. It is time for the post-free agency edition. We got one after the Combine. Now that we know for sure what the Falcons have done at the quarterback position, it really opens up a lot of potential avenues for the team, right? That we now know that they don't need to focus on getting that quarterback at the top of the draft or maneuvering around via trade or trading assets for like a Justin Fields or something like that, even though Justin Fields went for way less than I think pretty much anyone was expecting. That's a topic for another show perhaps, but we're going to break it down. We're going to do all 7 rounds today. Falcons don't have a 7th round pick, but if they did, we would go through that. So it's more 6th round, but whatever. It's the same thing, right, guys? But yeah, we'll break it down. This one, going to get a little more freestyle with it, going to consider some trades and things like that, because I do think in reality, the Falcons are probably going to be looking to take a trade down from 8, especially if they're targeting one of the edge rushers. If they have a specific one they want, they probably won't trade down, right? If they love Dallas Turner, for example, or Jared Verse, they probably can't risk trading down because the Bears at 9 could absolutely take one. But if they're open to multiple of those top edge rushers, I think a trade down to like 12, 11, 13. They won't trade with the Saints, right? But something in that range could absolutely be on the table. So we're going to look into that potential option as well as how it could impact the rest of their draft and the rest of their plans on today's show. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Kevin Knight, of course. Before we get started with the draft, let me bring you guys a real quick word from our sponsor, betonline.ag. Folks, the March Madness tournament is here, and BetOnline is your bracket headquarters for this season with the best bracket contest out there and odds, lines, and info on every game and every roundup right until the national championship game itself. I know many people's brackets have already been busted. Shout out to Bijan Robinson for being in the top 0.003% of all brackets. I believe as of Thursday night, his bracket was still perfect. I don't know by the time you read this, it probably won't still be perfect, but still incredibly impressive. So shout out to Bijan for his bracketing skills. Maybe we should be having him on to get his advice for this segment. But at any rate, guys, you can access the most up-to-the-minute wagering information anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices, and even track your bracket real-time all the way through to the tournament. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head to that website, betonline.ag today, and get in on all the action. Just remember to use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Similar, other side. There it is. Yes, if you're watching on audio, that's how you spell it, right? BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's dive into this mock draft. The Falcons start out with, at this point, they officially have 8 selections now that we've seen the draft order and the comp picks announced, because pick 187, which is the pick they originally traded for Kentavious Street, the Falcons actually get to keep that pick because Street did not meet the minimum starts required or active games required for that to initialize. So I believe they send a 2025 7th instead of this 2024 6th to the Eagles. But the Falcons are officially listed as having pick 187, so they do get that pick back, which is nice. It's always nice to have that ammunition. So that's important to note. So they have 8 picks going into the draft, which is always nice. 4 of them are on day 3, and 3 of them are on day. One of them, obviously, first round, and they have 3 day 2 picks, the 1 second and the 2 third rounders. One from the Ridley trade that obviously has become official, that it will be pick 79 from the Jaguars there. And I know there's a lot of talk about the Falcons being stripped picks for tampering and all this. The honest truth of that is, like, if they did tamper, which maybe they did, maybe they didn't. They probably did, but pretty much everyone does. So does it rise to the level of, serious picks being taken? I doubt it, because it seems like what happened was during the legal tampering window. So it wasn't exactly like they were doing anything like, I don't know, the Dolphins calling Tom Brady and Sean Payton during the season or whatever it was, which is very, very egregious, obviously. But, I'm not going to speculate on what exactly the penalties could be. But what I will say is it's unlikely that there will be anything decided before the 2024 draft. The NFL just figured out and doled out punishment for an error from 2022 with the 49ers and the salary cap. These investigations do take time. The NFL is typically very thorough, And that could be bad news for the Falcons if they did egregiously tamper, right? Or they were doing stuff way inappropriately. But more or less, the takeaway is it's probably not going to impact this year's draft. It would probably be next year's draft, and possibly 2026 because a lot of times they spread the penalty out over 2 drafts. But we'll see if anything comes of it. I don't think it's going to impact 2024, I guess is the short version of that statement. So moving on, starting with pick 8. In this simulation, which I did using PFF Simulator, the 4th quarterback was still on the board. It seems like the hype is that the Vikings are likely to trade up for J.J. McCarthy, maybe at 4, maybe at 5, depending on where they find the partner. I know a lot of people have said, like, oh, the Falcons should ask for 11 and 23 for the Vikings to come up to 8. And, like, maybe if, like, JJ falls to 8 and the Vikings haven't secured a trade up, there's, like, a slight chance that the Falcons could be like, look, all these teams are calling to get JJ. Like, you're going to have to pony up those picks if you want to get here. I just don't think that's very likely. That is an exorbitant price to pay for 3 spots that are no longer inside the top 5 of the draft and for the now 4th quarterback in the draft. So it's possible in terms of, like, you can't really rule anything out in the draft ever. I don't think it's particularly likely. And that does put the Vikings in an awkward situation because if they don't get the trade up done earlier, they may be forced into trading future picks, which again are less desirable for teams usually because they don't have a 2nd or a 3rd. They just have those 2 first round picks now. So they're going to go all out to try to trade up into the top 5 and secure their guy. However, I don't think that eliminates a quarterback trade up or another trade up. I know wide receiver is very possibly going to be here, like either Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, especially if there is a trade up for that 4th quarterback. It's very likely that either Joe Alt or one of Odunze or Neighbors will still be here for this pick, and someone could trade up for that player as well. But again, you're probably not trading 2 first-round picks to move up a few spots for a wide receiver. We'll see what the compensation ends up being if something like that does happen. In this scenario, you couldn't work anything out the Vikings because, again, they're not really willing to trade those 2 firsts to go up 3 spots. So instead, we take the Broncos offer, which is moving down to 12, which is a 4-spot trade down for the Falcons. We get 76, which is the Broncos' 3rd-round pick, and then we get the Broncos' 2025 3rd-rounder as well. So the Falcons continue to load up on those extra day 2 assets, which I think are always valuable. It's always nice to have that extra top 100 ammunition for future trade-ups, for just building out your depth chart, and again, getting extra picks for this team I think is going to be important going forward, especially given that we're going to start entering an era now where we probably are going to be spending a lot of money and not necessarily being able to fill out the roster with expensive free agents everywhere, and might need to rely on more on these day 2 picks to fill out some depth spots and some starting spots, hopefully, down the road. So we're going to take that trade. We're going to trade 8 to the Broncos for 12, 76, and a 2025 3rd. Help the future, help the now with an extra day 2 pick, giving the Falcons now 5 picks inside the top 100. I think technically 5 within the top 80. So always nice to see that, right? And I think that'll help this draft a lot. And we'll see, what the Falcons do with that pretty soon, right? But at 12, Dallas Turner's already off the board. And I think there's a decent chance Verse could also be off the board here. And for just to talk about all 3 of these guys, I'm going to go with Laiatu Latu, the UCLA edge rusher here. I think he's honestly on par with the other 2. I think they're all very close. So if you love Turner, or you love Verse, or you love Latu, I'm not going to argue with you because I think you can make a clear case for any of them. And I think Latu in particular saw the biggest boost from his combine because he came in with a good workout. I think people were worried he would be sort of an average athlete, which is not terrible given his technical ability, but it's not something that you're going to spend a top 15 pick on usually. Instead, Latu comes in with a 9.41 RAS. He tested out very well, definitely far above average. He does have less than ideal length, which is less important for the 3-4 outside linebacker that he is, but it's not great. He's got less than 33-inch arms. You don't love that, but he's got a good frame. 6'5", 267, came in with some super impressive agility numbers at his pro day. You're just not worried about his athleticism anymore. He checked that box, and we saw him dominate the Senior Bowl. If you look at his tape, he's probably the most advanced college pass rusher I have scouted, and I mean, since I've been doing this, he looks like a seasoned vet. He uses such an array of moves, and he uses them so easily and at the right time. He just is a natural pass rusher, and I think he trains really hard. And I think this is a staff that will really appreciate that about him. I think they value those players that are craftsmen and that love the game and that really put that extra effort in. I'm not saying that Turner or Verse don't do that. Definitely not. But I think Latu, you can see he's put in the time and taken the coaching to really hone his craft, which, in college, a lot of these guys don't have to do that because they're so physically dominant. But Latu did it anyway, and that, to me, makes him a very interesting. It's very interesting to see what Latu turns into in the NFL, but I think if you're looking for that win now player, the guy that's going to come in and give you an immediate pass rush boost, the two guys for that would be Jared Verse, who does it one way, and Latu, who does it another way. I think Latu's the cleaner fit for a 3-4 base defense, so that he could win the tiebreaker there. I'm going to have Jared Verse as my edge one, but for the Falcons, Turner and Latu might make more sense from a schematic standpoint. We'll see, but he's the most pro-ready pass rusher in the class. He's going to be an immediate impact pass rusher. I think he could be an 8-sack plus type guy as a rookie because of how polished he is, honestly. So he fits well with Atlanta's sort of win now mindset with the Kirk Cousins signing, and I think his workout at the combine has really lifted him into that range where it would not be crazy to see him go as edge one. But I think probably more likely to be edge two. I still think Dallas Turner is going to end up being the first guy off the board because, look, he's Dallas Turner. He's like Latu, but, he's much less polished. Like, Turner's going to take time to develop, but Turner checks every box athletically, frame, whatever you want to say, that Latu doesn't necessarily do. But to me, I don't think they're all that far apart in terms of how I'm going to have them graded. It's just I wouldn't blame anyone for going after the higher end athlete, the higher ceiling with an earlier pick. And the Falcons still get a great pass rusher, easily a top 15 player in the class at pick 12. And I think, Latu, it's a good problem to have. You got the 3 pass rushers here that I think are all worthy of this selection. So you can afford to trade down, pick up those extra day 2 picks, and secure a cornerstone piece of your defense going forward. Love Latu, love his fit in Atlanta. I think he makes a lot of sense. Even if they stay at 8, I would not rule out Latu being the one they go with, just because I think he is a win now type of pick. I think he makes a ton of sense for this team. So moving on to pick 43, which is Atlanta's second round pick. The Falcons still have a lot of needs, and we'll see what they end up filling out in free agency, right? I think at this stage, you kind of wonder what the next move is going to be. There's been a lot of speculation that the Falcons are working on a trade for Hassan Reddick. I personally think that is true. I don't have I don't have sources, okay, on this one. I just think if you look at the tea leaves, the Falcons haven't utilized any of their restructure money, any of the cap space they could be creating, which leads me to believe they're negotiating with someone, trying to figure out if they can get a deal done that's going to be very expensive before they go out and stretch their resources thin with a bunch of smaller mid-level signings. So I think it's either going to be a big addition like a Hassan Reddick via trade, or it's going to be a couple of mid-level additions like, John Johnson, Akella Witherspoon, maybe a Carl Lawson or something like that to bolster the edge group. They're kind of, I think, in that holding pattern, negotiating with a couple of people, seeing if they can get something done. But until we know, we just have to kind of go off of, we don't know what the additions are going to be, so we just have to kind of wing it, right? So at this point, cornerback still a big need. I do think the one takeaway from the Falcons not immediately going out and adding another cornerback and letting Jeff Okudah leave is that they do, I think, trust the group they have to be okay. They're not necessarily worried about the group that they have. And I think that's fair. I do think that it should be D. Alford in the slot. We know Jerry Gray loves Mike Hughes, so I'm not ruling out Mike Hughes playing and starting and all that. I just don't think Mike Hughes is a very good slot corner. I think he's actually a better outside corner. So if they're going to play him, I'd rather they give him a chance there. But I think Clark Phillips, obviously up and down rookie season, not at all unexpected. He will benefit from a switch more to this zone heavy scheme. That's always been his game as a man coverage guy. I don't think that was super, especially at his size, going to be something he was great at. He's always been a better zone corner. I think this switch will actually help him. So it could be that they think the switch back to zone with Clark Phillips coming, and playing that outside, they're fine with that. However, they still need to add more at cornerback for the future, for now, what have you. And I think getting a versatile corner in here is good business, especially if one like TJ Tampa falls to 43. I'm not sure if he will, but this is probably the last guy I would seriously consider taking at corner in this range before just punting it to round 3. So TJ Tampa, perfect fit for the scheme, right? He's long, he's athletic, super smooth mover, doesn't have like tremendous long speed, but I think his long speed is fine. Big, 6'1", 190, right? He's long, he's aggressive as a route disruptor. He's got good instincts. He just moves very well. He's physical as a tackler. He can play press. He can play inside and out. He has a lot of experience in the slot as well. I just think Tampa is an ideal cornerback 2 that might have cornerback 1 upside potentially, especially in this type of scheme. So you bring him in, and I do think the Falcons are probably going to get a deal done with AJ Terrell, or they will trade him for a premium asset. So one way or another, they're going to either flip Terrell for a big pick, or they're going to have, Terrell playing one corner spot. So Tampa could potentially be that big outside corner to give the Falcons, a big boost outside and kind of compete with Clark Phillips immediately. He also can play the slot. So if they need someone to step into the slot, if there's injuries or what have you, he can do that. So I think you draft Tampa, you get him in here as a rookie. He's probably going to be your CB3, CB4 guy, and he can play any spot. And he's maybe going to get that Clark Phillips treatment where he's sort of slowly incorporated. And then next year, maybe he can be your cornerback 2. Or if you do move on from Terrell, maybe you have a new cornerback duo and save a lot of money there and use those assets elsewhere, maybe on the pass rush, what have you. Tampa gives you a lot of flexibility and addresses a big need. And I think he's good value here at 43. And his ability to play any spot too helps you because you're not pigeonholing him into one spot and saying, well, if we have too many guys at outside, then he just won't play. He can play wherever. So I think that's a good pick. I think it fills multiple needs and just boosts the cornerback depth in a big way. And that's an important thing for this defense. All right. The trades are not over. Falcons have these 3 third-round picks, and they're just burning a hole in Terry's pocket. He's got to do something with these picks. He can't just sit there and take all these picks, right? You got to do something. So right about pick 60, I saw a wide receiver that I really like. He's still there. I'm like, okay. I think this is, in this type of scenario, I think the Falcons could be aggressive. And I will tell you who the wide receiver is that they traded for in just one moment. All right, so the Falcons see wide receiver Xavier Legette from South Carolina still on the board at pick 60. I don't think this is terribly unlikely. I do think it's very unlikely he will last into the 3rd round. I think he's going to go soon after this. So I think if they want him and he does fall in this range, which I think is very possible, mostly because there's so many good receivers. Some of them are just going to fall. That's just how this works. The Falcons sort of pounce. So they pick at 74. They move up with the Bills here, who don't have a lot of day 3 picks. This is really one of their last ones, so they could use extra ammunition in the middle of the draft. They trade up to 60 with the Bills. They send 74 and their 4th round pick 109 to the Bills, which is pretty fair compensation on the value chart, and I think the Bills would be happy to get that extra early day 3 pick to help bolster their roster considering their salary cap issues. So the Falcons use one of those 3rd round picks to get up here for Xavier Legette, and I think this is a great situation for them. I don't think they have to make a move or take a wide receiver in the 2nd round at this point, given the investments they've made, but I think if they find someone that they really, really like who falls, I think this is the opportunity you look for to move up, because Xavier Legette is a late bloomer. He's kind of an interesting guy. Didn't really have a lot of production at all in his past until this last year. Comes in and just blows up, like almost 1,300 yards, over 17 yards per reception, playing with Spencer Rattler at South Carolina. Just had a breakout season. Goes to the combine, posts an insane 9.88 RAS. He ran a 4.39 at over 220 pounds. That is completely absurd. That is elite speed at that size. 40-inch vert, 10.6 broad. He's 6'1", 221. He put up 24 reps on the bench as a receiver. That is absolutely crazy. This is a strong, physical wide receiver who's also a great athlete. I mean, you'd want him to be a little bit taller, but this is a wide receiver 1 type of build, but he's not a wide receiver 1 type of player yet. At the Senior Bowl, you could see exactly, I think, who Xavier Legette is, which is that he's physically dominant. And he will go up and get the ball. He can just beat people with his speed. He can do all kinds of great stuff. He can do contested catch stuff, whatever you want. But he doesn't really run a great route tree. He's not super smooth with his movement yet. There's some wasted steps, and you could see it. Some of the better corners at the Senior Bowl were able to keep up with him and were able to contest a lot of catches because he wasn't creating all the separation. But he's got all the traits. And I think last year you could see it at South Carolina. If he's got a quarterback that can get him the ball, he can be really dominant and very good. I think this is a future NFL wide receiver too, maybe even a very high-end one, like a T. Higgins type of guy potentially in the future if he hits his absolute ceiling. So the Falcons don't need Leggett to immediately step into that wide receiver 2 role, and that's why I think going for someone like this makes a lot of sense. He needs time to learn the rest of the route tree. He needs time to work on his footwork and do all of these things. They don't need him to immediately step in. I think he will come in and probably be the 3-4 type of guy. He could compete with like Rondale Moore and Ray McLeod to get on the field. I also think he could potentially be Drake London's like immediate backup for this year because they don't really have a lot of physical big receivers other than London. Maybe Hodge is the other one, but I think he comes in, he sort of works his way into the lineup, gets some reps, probably plays in the red zone and stuff like that as a rookie, and then next year and beyond, he can sort of move into that wide receiver 2 role that I think he will eventually become. And I think the value here for him is good. The Falcons have those guys at receiver, so he won't have to be forced onto the field if he's not ready yet. And he's a good complement to the guys that the Falcons added. They added a lot of speed and dynamic athleticism, but they didn't really add that size and physicality. That's sort of Drake London's game. So Leggett gives you another guy similar to London, but with better athletic profile that can do a little bit more of the deep stuff and some other stuff that London has. He's nowhere near as technically polished or as smooth a route runner or anything like that as London, but can give you some of that size and stuff. So I do like Leggett's fit here a lot. I think making this trade makes sense to secure a potential high-end wide receiver 2. And the other side of that coin is when you've had to pay London and potentially pay Pitts, having that cheap receiver 2 for another 2 years after you've paid those guys could be key to having an elite group of weapons here in Atlanta, because you're not going to be able to pay Pitts, London, and another high-end receiver. You're going to have to make decisions about where you're going to cut. Then you have to get some cheap guys in the draft. I think Leggett could be a way to do that and start early and develop instead of having to try to spend more premium picks on a guy that's ready to play immediately. So love that fit for Atlanta. I think he makes a lot of sense. And I think with the extra picks you acquired in the earlier trade, you can make this happen and it doesn't really hurt the rest of your draft at all. So round 3, pick 76, we're going back to the old standby. I'm going to keep drafting T'Vondre Sweat whenever he's available in this range. And T'Vondre Sweat's a real wild card, I think. He could go top 50. Like it could happen if someone falls in love with him. Or I think he could stick around until like close to pick 100 because it just depends on what you think. Do you believe in Sweat's ability to drop weight and play all 3 downs, or do you think he's just a very good 2-down, run stuffer specialist that can push the pocket if they do decide to throw on that early down? So he has that ability, but he's not going to be able to play a ton of snaps unless he's able to keep that weight down. So how much faith you have in him being able to do that is going to determine how highly you value him. And I think there will be some teams that value him higher and some that don't, which is why I think kind of in the middle of that like 50 to 75 range, or 50 to 100 range is probably where he's going to go. Pick 76 here. If he's here, I think it's great value. And I think he fills a big need for the Falcons. They don't really have that nose tackle. And if they miss out on Sweat, there's some other guys that you could look at later on in this class and always in free agency, right, that you can get a nose tackle without spending too much. But Sweat has high upside. I mean, there's no denying it. I think if he could drop down to 340, this could be a Dontari Poe-esque type of player in time, if he continues to hone his craft. But he's got a lot of work to do, and it's hard to keep that weight off when you've been playing at that weight for so long. So if he's here, I love it. You guys know how much I love Sweat. I think he's a great player. I think he's fun. I think he plays really hard, and I think he'd be perfect between Jarrett and Onyemata and let those guys just wreak havoc, basically, while he takes on a double team. I think that would make a ton of sense. So if he's here, we're sending it every time, basically. I love T'Vondre Sweat. So round 3, pick 79. This is the Jaguars pick from Calvin Ridley. I'm going to go with another safety here. I did that in the last draft too with Dadrian Taylor-Demerson from Texas Tech. I still really like him, and if it's a choice between him and this guy, I'm still going to go with Taylor-Demerson, but I do want to expose you guys to some different prospects too in these exercises. So this time we're going to go with Cole Bishop from Utah, who I know Jordan Watkins shouted out on Wednesday's show. And I like him. I think he's a guy that's definitely rising up the draft boards. He had a very good combine, finished with the 9.81 RAS. He's got great size, 6'2", 206. super high motor player, physical, enforcer, tackler, but he can play coverage. He can play split safety. He can play deep. He's an aggressive playmaker. His issue is he's very aggressive in everything he does. He will absolutely bolt after something if he thinks he could make a play on the ball or make a, and it's to his detriment too. Like a little bit too much sometimes. Like he may vacate a responsibility deep and cause problems. So he's really a nice guy to pair with someone like a Jesse Bates, someone super reliable that is going to be able to cover up any problems on the back end. You can have Bishop play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage and just hunt. He can get out there in that zone and look for opportunities to make plays, smash running backs, just do whatever needs to be done closer to the line of scrimmage. And in split safety looks, I think he's fine too. It's just when he has to really be the last line of defense in terms of coverage, he's a little high risk for that. And sometimes he makes some spectacular plays, but it's gotten him into trouble too. So I think pairing him with someone like Bates, who also I think would be a great mentor for sort of coaching him on when to take those risks and when to not take those risks and learning the best way to do that stuff. I think Bishop really can be a versatile do-it-all safety eventually. But I think early on, he's going to probably start as that closer to the line of scrimmage guy, with Bates being a little bit deeper, and maybe they'll do some split safety stuff. But I think Cole Bishop is a really good fit next to Bates. And look, the way the Falcons probably need to find a cheap running mate for Jesse Bates. Given how much they're paying Jesse Bates, they can't really break the bank on another safety as much as tempting as it might be. And I think you're probably looking for someone with a little bit more deep coverage ability than DeMarco Hellams. I love DeMarco Hellams. I think he's absolutely a good third safety and enforcer type. And he's not bad in coverage. It's just he doesn't have the range on the back end to really be able to do that type of stuff. So when teams see DeMarco Hellams, they're not really worried about him rotating back and playing deep coverage because he just doesn't have the range to do that. So I think the idea is you get a guy with better range, better ability to do that, and that gives you more rotational ability with Bates and Bishop to confuse defenses, while Hellams can be more of your enforcer, closer to the line of scrimmage safety and 3 safety sets, or in rotational, run-focused situations. But I like Bishop. I think he's got a really high NFL ceiling as a long-term versatile starter, and he just needs a little bit of time and needs to work on maybe tamping down that aggressiveness a little bit. You got to figure out how to control that aggression, but the best safeties we know, they're playmakers, and Bishop is absolutely a playmaker. So moving on to round 5, pick 143. This is where we're going to go after a developmental quarterback. With the trade of Desmond Ridder, I expect the Falcons that they're going to be looking for a developmental quarterback, whether it's in the draft or via trade. I think they'll be looking at cuts and stuff like that as we get closer to training camp, towards the end of training camp, So I know the Falcons allegedly like Spencer Rattler, so they could go that route on day 2. I don't really want to spend that type of pick on a developmental quarterback, even though I think Rattler is a very intriguing guy, no offense to him certainly, but I do like the idea of going after someone like FSU's Jordan Travis. I know he's very popular with fans. I think predicting where he goes in the draft is really hard. I know a lot of times he goes earlier than this. A lot of times he lasts a bit longer. I think this is kind of about where he's going to go. Maybe a little bit earlier if somebody falls in love with the potential. But look, he's coming off a severe season-ending injury. He's probably not going to play anytime soon. And that's why he's fallen so far. Now, we saw like Hendon Hooker last year still go in the 3rd round, and that could be where Travis ends up going. But this is a deeper class in terms of the day 2 and day 3 quarterbacks, so he may last longer because of that. But either way, the Falcons don't really need Travis to be available early in the season, or maybe really much at all this year. He probably won't be active most weeks other than just being an emergency 3rd quarterback. So Travis has great traits. Like, I think he absolutely looks like he could be a plus backup quarterback in the NFL, like right away, because he's a good athlete. So he can threaten as a dual threat guy. And when you're a backup quarterback, the ability to sort of make yourself dangerous in multiple ways is good, because look, you're not expecting your backup quarterback to be Kirk Cousins as a passer. That's just not going to happen. So you have to be able to threaten the defense in some other way, maybe that they haven't even prepared for. I think he's got good arm strength. I don't think it's tremendous. I don't think it's high end, but it's enough to make the throws that you need to. And he's known as being a very hard worker and a capable leader. And you need your backup quarterback to be able to come in and take control of the huddle. And I think he will learn to fix the problems in his game, which is that he just needs to be a little bit better in structure. I think he's a very good out of structure quarterback. He's good at the scrambling. He's good at throwing on the move and all these things. He just needs to be more reliable in structure. And that, if he nails that down, especially throwing in the middle of the field and stuff like that, and being able to sit in the pocket when it's clean, and make smart throws and read the field and do more pre-snap and that sort of thing, I think Jordan Travis could have starting upside. It's just, at this stage, I feel safer with him as a backup, but I think this is a good low-risk move to get a quarterback in here who does have dual threat ability, who has upside, and could maybe eventually tempt you as a starter. But if he's just a good backup quarterback for you that's cheap for 4 years, I think you're pretty happy with that. And look, if he comes in and impresses, you might have a good trade chip there as well. So, I mean, we just saw Desmond Ridder wasn't even very good, right? And we still flipped him for a potential starting receiver. So, yeah, you can do things with these quarterback picks. And I think this is good value for him if he sticks around this long. So I like the pick of Jordan Travis there as well. Moving on to round 6, pick 187. This is the Falcons' original pick from the Kentavious Street trade. So I'm going to go with another safety here. And again, like at this stage in the draft, I know people are going to be like, oh, they don't need another safety. They just took one. Like, what about all this? Like, this is not this part of the draft is not where you go after needs, because these guys are probably not starting for you. Maybe at some point they could, but you're looking for special teamers. You're looking for contributors, looking for guys that can boost your depth. And you go for players you like, guys that maybe are good values, guys that are maybe a little bit underrated. And the position doesn't matter as much once you get later into day 3. So I think here I go with the safety I really liked from the Senior Bowl, and that's Ketan Oladipo from Oregon State. I thought he was very impressive at the Senior Bowl. He did some good stuff. He also turned in a better than expected workout at the Combine, finished with an 8.23 RAS. And honestly, Oladipo's a lot like DeMarco Hellams in that he is a very physical, strong safety enforcer type, but he's very smart and trustworthy in coverage. He just doesn't have the range on the back end necessarily to trust him as like a single high type of safety. The thing about Oladipo is that he has a lot better size than Hellams. Like, he is a prototype strong safety, 6'2", 216. He's big. He's long. He's got more of the traits than Hellams does, which is why he's going a little bit higher in the draft. But, you know, I think with Oladipo, you take him, you play him similar to DeMarco Hellams. You make him play closer to the line of scrimmage. He could play man coverage against tight ends. He does have enough athleticism for that. He certainly tested better than Hellams did. I think he'll shine in a role like that. He's not as versatile. He's not going to be a full-time starting safety for you, but he does give Atlanta an option to potentially replace like a Richie Grant, save that $3 million, and maybe even be a better special teams player and a long-term rotational safety a la DeMarco Hellams. I like that fit here. I think it's a good value. I like Oladipo. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up going early day 3 because I think he's kind of underrated right now. But again, as a guy that I think could come in, can play really good special teams, has a role that he can fill on defense if needed, you know, I think he's a good addition at this point in the draft for sure. And then we stick with that sort of theme here with the final pick, which is round 6, pick 199. Going with a linebacker to fill out more of the depth chart. That's linebacker Jordan McGee from Temple. You know, I think the Falcons' top 3 at linebacker is very good and very intriguing. Caden Ellis, Nate Landman, Troy Anderson. You know, we'll see who wins the second job, you know, whether it's Landman or Anderson. I think, obviously, the Falcons would like Anderson to win the job, with Landman probably being more of that, like, run game-focused, you know, linebacker when they're in more of those, you know, sets. We could also see Caden Ellis doing more of his Saints-type things where he, you know, rotates down towards the line of scrimmage sometimes, and you leave Nate Landman and Troy Anderson back. The depth behind them is a big question mark. You know, they didn't bring back Andre Smith Jr., who I thought was a fine, you know, depth linebacker for them. They do have a lot of UDFA type, like futures contract type guys in that room that could be competing. But I do like McGee if they're trying to like develop another sort of athlete at linebacker. You know, he's a little bit undersized, 6'1", 228, but the NFL is going to that style of linebacker. It's not uncommon to see guys this size anymore. Despite his size, like, he plays very physical. He's like a hair on fire type of guy. He's a fun guy to watch. I mean, he kind of has like an unconventional style to how he plays. He just kind of knifes and like bounces around between blockers and just finds ways to make tackles. Like, he'll just throw himself in there and get guys on the ground. And I think, you know, that's important. He is a good tackler. He finds ways to make tackles pretty much everywhere. Finished with a 9.29 elite RAS. I think his ability in coverage is pretty raw. I think he needs development there. But I think like as a depth linebacker, core special teams guy, I think he's a good fit. You think you keep him as like the back end of your roster guy, you develop him, have him play special teams, work on his coverage, work on his technical aspects, and see if you can find something there. I think every year you see these late day 3 linebackers turning into starters. And I think McGee has that sort of potential. I don't know if it'll be like an immediate thing with him, but I do like McGee and his long-term sort of potential. So that is it, folks. That is all the picks in this mock draft. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's a fun one. We got some different names in here. These are probably going to be coming out, every 2 weeks in terms of full mocks. We'll probably do at least a couple mock drafts on the Wednesday show. We're going to be doing a live mock draft. Either it'll be late next week or early the week after, like the Monday of the week after. I will probably announce that on Wednesday's show. And that'll be the first live mock draft will be for channel members and patrons, but we will have a live mock draft probably for everyone like before the draft itself, probably like the Wednesday show before. So, if you want to support the channel, we'll probably do at least a couple live mock drafts there prior to the draft itself, but we will have at least one for everyone to enjoy. And you can always watch those after they air, of course. But yeah, speaking of that, check out the Patreon. If you're a podcast listener, check out the channel memberships on YouTube. If you're a YouTube video enjoyer, please like, subscribe. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Check out the community Discord server. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Check out thefalcoholic.com for the written content as well. We appreciate everyone for joining us here. We're getting closer to the draft. Just a little over a month to go. It's an exciting time, and I don't think the Falcons are done in free agency either, so we'll see what other types of moves we have coming with this team. But appreciate everyone for tuning in today. Thank you for your patience. I know I said this would be early on Friday. It's coming out late on Friday, but it is officially here on a Friday. So if you've been waiting, it's going to be here. But thanks again, everyone. Thanks again to betonline.ag for sponsoring today's show. And appreciate everyone for following along. We'll see you guys next time on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Have a great day, folks.